show you a video of what I did around maybe 20 years ago. I owned a double house down the street, and the front wall, 20 foot of the wall was buckling in. There was a big crack through the seam. The whole wall was buckling in. Now, in this video, I put up this half-inch piece of wood to show you, imagine that the wall's buckled out to here, and that there's a crack through the brick. And that basically, bottom half's a little tilted in, the top half's this, that the outside ground is forcing against this brick, cracking it, bowing this wall. Now, there's different systems. I looked at some of them. One is drill a hole through here, take a 3-inch threaded rod, 8 foot long, put it all the way through. On the outside they put a plate. On here they put another plate with a big nut, and they give you a wrench. Every so often you go downstairs and you tighten it up once a week, twice a week, and you tighten that nut up. And the idea was to pull the wall up. Well, I thought about that, and number one, the cost of that is one thing. Plus two, if you have a driveway or something on the other side where you can't get in to put that plate, you got a problem. Plus there's the cost of that. So this is what I came up with. I came up with, going ahead, you can see, here's a 2x4. I'm going to have to take the camera and show you a little closer. But what I did was, all the way along the crack, at every joist, I attached the 2x4 up above, and down below I had another 2x4 on the floor. And I'll show you that in a second. And the idea of this whole system is, so what I came up with. We're going to have this 2x4 so it's attached at the floor, attached up above. Then we're going to take wedges and drive wedges in here. And driving those wedges in there will apply force against the brick. You're going to be doing this every 16 inches all the way down. Now, the thing I like about this system is, number one, the only cost. I got two costs. Three if you want to look at it. Three costs. One's for the 2x4s. The other is for the anchors that you use to put down the 2x4 down into the concrete, because you got to attach this board to the concrete floor. And there's some screws that attach it to the joist up above. But when you're done with all this project, you can reuse the 2x4s for something else, take them down. And now, after I get this up and show you with the wedges and everything else, I'll show you how to stabilize this wall, or how I stabilized my wall. Now, the one big advantage of this is, with these 2x4s up along the wall, you're only taking up 8 inches along the wall. So I mean, you could take a year to push this thing back as far as that goes. You're not interfering with your basement. You're increasingly pushing this wall back. All you got to do is remember every couple of months go down, and I'll show you how to cut some easy way to cut some wedges. And once the wedges are driven in, cut in, all you got to do is hit the wedges. When you're all done with it, you unscrew it, you take it down, and I'll show you how to stabilize the wall. All right, that's it for right now. There you see up above, I put 5 screws, 3-inch screws through that stud up there. 8-foot stud fits real nice in here. Down below I got another stud sitting down. I'm going to take this other board, enough space this board. What I try to do is parallel with the wall. Hi. Let me show you what I got so far. Well, I got two boards up. That's all I'm really going to do to show you. Like I say, in the centers are 3/8 bow out. You know, I can imagine if the wall was bowing out at that point, 3/8 or half, you know, whatever it is, out. Now, I'm going to cut wedges. I'm going to show you how to cut wedges. Now, the one thing I did change, I was going to use Tapcons, but that was a lot of drilling for those quarters. So I went ahead and I went to Home Depot, and I got these 1/2-inch bolts, 3 3/4 long. And as you drill down, you put them down, you can bolt anything down. That 1/2-inch bolt, that's a 1/2-inch steel bolt through there. That 2x4 is not going to move anywhere. So if you put one of those in between each of the 2x4s you got up, it's not going anywhere. The only little problem is when you're done with this, you can't get that bolt out. You're going to bolt and get the 2x4 up. You're going to have to take a 1/4-inch, one of the 5.5-inch Harbor Freight grinders with a cutoff wheel, and just cut that off flush with the floor and leave it in the floor. That's the best you can do. Maybe even drive it. If you want to hide it, you could probably even, once you cut it off, drive it down a little bit more and then into the floor, and then patch it over with something. But that's not going anywhere. All right, let me cut some wedges. The easiest way to make wedges, nice smooth wedges, is on a table saw. What it is, I got the cross slide here. Went ahead, I cut, because you want the grain to run longwise. This is a 1x12 I cut off 4.5 inches of the end. Roughly I set it there. I adjusted it. You got to play with this to see what the angle is. Now I'm going to cut that angle, then I'm going to flip it off, flip it over, and I'll show you. Done was, I have a mark here over from where the saw goes through, and that's the widest point. It's a little smaller than the opening behind the 2x4s. Now, I'm going to put the wire, drive these wedges in, and as you go along, 2x4 is going to start. When you first put it in, your 2x4 be here, and then as you drive it in, and little by little as the wall moves, you're going to keep jamming it. Now if you get to a point where you're almost out of wedge, you can pull a sneaky and go ahead and cut some 1/4-inch plywood and just put a little piece of plywood underneath there, and that'll add another 1/4 to this. You can keep doing it. All right. That's how to make wedges. All right, next part of this. You got all your studs in. You got your bottom board down. You go ahead and you put your wedges in. Now, this is a little funny on the wedges. I got them cut real big. But actually in your wall, at this point it'll go from here down to nothing. I mean, it would be touching here, so you'd have to have smaller diameter wedges for here, and it would go further on down. So, like I say, these are cut kind of big because I don't have this angle here. You would need smaller wedges up near the point. Alright. At this point, I'm going to start everything's ready. The 2x4s are up. 2x4 bolted down to the floor, attached up above. You're ready to start putting the wedges in. Now it's a little hard to show what kind of wedges to use because at this point these studs are going to be touching here, and actually it's going to open up as you go down because this wall's tilted in. It's going to be touching right here. So you're going to need thinner wedges, real thin wedges to get behind up close in here, because you want to apply the wedges starting from here, this point, all the way down to a good little, so you'll be moving this wall, not just applying pressure right here, but applying pressure down through here too, and applying pressure here and up here. So what it is you're going to need wedges that are smaller, not as big here. These are just big here because so they can fit in between here. But you're going to be putting the wedges in, tapping the wedges, and as you go along, you're going to have to keep modifying because there, you're going to have to, like I say, spread these wedges over. You want to spread these wedges over a large area. Like I say, this is all a little game of applying pressure all along this wall. See that? You can see how far these wedges are going in now. It's applying that pressure against the wall. You can really drive these things in and apply a lot of pressure, but it's going to have to be a little game of little by little. The stud was touching before. Now there's maybe a ½ inch gap in between to show you how much this is bowed out. Now what it is you're going to walk away from this after you got the wedges in. And like I say, even if you go down every day and tap them in a little bit, you want to keep all that pressure up against the wall. Now keep in mind, this is every 15 inches you have all that pressure. Now, as your wall slowly moves back, like I say, this it's going to take over a month or 2 months. Even with the bolt, if you go with that system, it's going to take a good little while to pull this wall back, because you're pressing up against all that dirt, moving it all back over. You're going to find out with this constant pressure against the wall, the wedges are going to get looser and looser because you're pushing the wall back. So you're going to have to go down and keep tightening the wedges up. So they have that same amount of pressure. Then the other thing is too, this 2x4 is going to bow out a little bit. It's going to bow out a little bit. So you want to keep the pressure. Now the thing is, when the wall starts moving back in, you're going to get to a point where these wedges might not be big enough. So So what you can do is take another little piece of 1/4 inch stock or whatever behind it, push it in so then it won't go in as far. So you can really keep using those wedges to go out. Like I say, these wedges are actually kind of big. You should really be starting out with a wedge that maybe 1/8 of an inch there to, 3/4 of an inch there or so. Because like I say, the wall boring out, this is a little deceptive how this is set up. But this is the whole idea about pulling this out this way. Now we're going to spring ahead, whatever it takes, the amount of time it takes to straighten this wall up. In my case on that, I think it was over around 3 months it took me to straighten up. And that was over summertime. Wintertime might take a little longer, well, probably because the ground will be harder, colder, whatever. But summertime, water and everything else makes the ground a little easier to move. But over X amount of time, you're going to find that the walls straighten up, the crack, is closed up, and your wall is basically straight. You have to be perfectly straight, but you want to get it straight. Now, you got your wall straight, but what you really want to do now is stabilize it in that position. So what we're going to do is, you're going to take every other stud out or so, every couple of, well, let me take this stud out, and then I'll show you as we go along what happens. Well, if anything, let me take these down and we'll close this up by removing this, because the wallers are going to bounce back real quick. Once this is up, the waller stays stable for a certain amount of time. Keep in mind, there was a break through this that pushed out. If you did nothing, this wall over time will start blowing back over. So you want to stabilize this whole block wall. Let me show you what I did to stabilize the wall. Let me remove this first, and I'll show you grinding the stud off, and we'll finish that up. Like I say, the order of taking the wall down, you're going to be getting all your wedges out of there. Now your 2x4s are free. What I'm going to do is unscrew it from the top, take the 2x4s off, take the bottom, and I'll show you cutting the stud off. Alright, I'm going to grind the stud off. This is a thin cut-off wheel, 4.5 inch diameter, and a little 4.5 inch grinder. Now, I don't want to really cut flush to the ground, because then that blade starts to jam a little bit. I'll stay up around 1/8 of an inch when I'm cutting. Now, everybody always comments that I don't wear safety equipment. For this cut, I'll wear a shield. Now, one thing I found, when you drill the hole, first drill a hole through the 2x4 with a wood bit, and drill like a 9/16 hole, or even a 5/8. What it is it'll jam up against, and this will still jam up against that hole in a 2x4. Plus you got a nice big washer that comes with this. Plus it'll be a lot easier to pop this 2x4 off with all those studs after you unbolt them, get them off. Now, let me see if I can knock that down. Actually, it's knocked down. What it is, when you drill these holes, you're supposed to drill it to begin with at least ½ inch deeper than you want. So what it is I could have let it flush or knock it down, but I can throw a little bit of mud or filler on there, just sand it off. Won't even know there was a hole there at one point. Won't hurt the concrete floor either. Not that far into it. Alright, we're going to assume you got the walls fairly stabilized up. You don't want to leave all these 2x4s and everything here for the rest of the time you own it. You want to stabilize this wall. There's only one way to stabilize this wall. Now, these are hollow block. That means it's hollow in there, hollow in there, hollow in there, all the way up and down. It's hollow. There's a hollow spot in there. Now, if you were lucky, you wouldn't have this bowing problem as when they poured the walls. They put rods in there and poured concrete every so often to reinforce this wall so that won't happen. But a lot of the homes, they were a little lazy, they didn't do that. Cheaper homes, they rushed it in. That's why it cracked, because there was nothing solid along the way to keep that wall from bowing in. So what you got to do is fill these in. We got to do is fill it in. Now, how do we do that? Well, again, this is where our crack was, right through here. This is what we have to reinforce, right through here along the wall. And on a 20-foot wall, maybe every 4 foot, 3 foot, whatever you want. But what you're going to do, and I'm not going to do it because there's nothing wrong with the wall. But what I had to do when I did the other was, I came up here and I busted out this tile, the front face of it. Just the front. All you need is smash through here, clean it all out. You're going to leave the inside sides in there, and the center in there, and the other side there, but you want this open. Once you bust that out open, you're going to go ahead, and let's show you what the first thing is. All right, at this point, we have this block broken out, open, then we can get at through the hollow sections down through here. What you're going to do is, you're going to get ½ inch rebar. Now these are 2 foot long. This is what it came in. They come in 4 foot lengths, whatever. It all depends how much you can get up before you hit up above and to get in there. The longer the better. I mean, you could jury rig and wrap some wire around here and here so you got a couple to get a little bit further. But what we want to do is we want to span this joint with steel at least. Then what we're going to do, and again, we're going to take it and tie them together and hang that string over that center block so they hang down around in that location inside the blocks. Then we're going to mix up a little bit soupy mix of concrete. Going to mix it up. It's a little bit of a hassle down here. Mix it up. Then you're going to go ahead and pour the concrete in there. Now, when I poured the other, I used a lot of concrete. I poured it all the way down. You can pour it all the way down where I mean, you can. It's just a hassle. But then you'll have a solid piece of concrete in there up to that point. Concrete poured inside block up to that point with the steel across the joint. Now, once that's done, you can seal this up. Now the way you seal it up, they sell just a face brick this size. So what you do is, you have a bag of mortar cement around. You clear off the back brick, the sides that are still in there, so this fits in there nicely. Then you go ahead and just mud the hell out of it, behind it, around it, and you put that in and you clean it off. Once it sets up, you never know anything was done to the wall. And again, like I say, now, how often do you do this? Well, Let's see. I mean, if you want to go every third brick over, you know, with 3 in between, or 2 in between, depends how much you want to do. You know, really, but once that's poured in, after it's set up, now, if you want, you can still leave some of the boards up in between here that you have along the wall, the 2x4s. If you're a little doubtful about it sagging back in, leave them up. Just remove over where you have to break into the brick. Once it's all set up, take everything down. That's it. Again, name of this game in here is 2x4s on every joist up above coming down. 2x4 laying on the ground with this 2x4 really just up touching against where it's bowed out, or even a hair out you could go. Then you're going to put the 2x4 lengthwise in front of the 2x4s, and you're going to attach it to the floor. Then to make sure it's touching, because an important one is the 2x4 on the bottom. Before you attach the top 2x4s, get a dimension of what you want that bottom 2x4 away from the wall. Set your 2x4 in there, put it up against the crack or near the crack, then attach it. That way you want to make sure your bottom 2x4 is up against that 2x4. Give a little uniformity to it. It's not that critical. But all right, and again, now down there, I had a whole bunch of 1/8 steel rods that I could bend and fish down in there, and that's what I used. I didn't use the rebar. I used around 6 of these 1/8 steel wire rods type system that I have. You put this in, that wall's going to go nowhere once it's set up. Enjoy the project. It's not for everybody, but hey, if you're a little DIY guy and you got this problem, you want to save money, like I say, the only cost you really have on this job is $1.60 for each one of those anchors, which is in 20 footers, you know, $30, whatever. The rebar, you're going to put that in there. I think it's like $1.50 for each 2-foot rebar. So you got that cost. You got the bags of cement, which really isn't that much. Everything else, the 2x4s, everything else you'll reuse on something else. It's not a throwaway on that. You don't lose money on the 2x4s. So, all right, I say this project really, when I did it, it cost me more than $200. So, hey, I saved a good little bit. The wall, the last I talked to the guy who owns it, the wall's still in good shape after, I don't know, it's 15, could have even been 20 years. You know, time flies when you're having fun. All right, wish you luck on the project.